What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. Guess what, Mark? Guess what else today is? Happy birthday to me. That's right. Yes,
Oh
it's
man.
Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Came into this accursed world on this accursed day all those many, many years ago. But as we're sitting down to record this, it's actually not yet my birthday. I'm 38 for a wee bit longer because it is 1:50 p.m. on the left coast as we sit down to record this on April 7th. So I'm Trey, the birthday boy, and that's Mark. Yeah, that's what I get for my birthday. Another once in a lifetime catastrophe. It's always fun as a millennial. Always look forward to those. Every 5 years or so, there's new generational disaster that we get to deal with. But yeah, the global economy teetering on the precipice of collapse for very reasonable and understandable reasons I'm sure we'll get into. But how are you doing?
Every time we elect a Republican president, this happens. What a weird coincidence. But I'm doing pretty good. Before we get to the show, less than 1 week ago, Cory, what did Senator of New Jersey, Cory Booker did like a 25-hour speech on the Senate floor, broke Strom Thurmond's record. Breaking the record's fucking cool. Fuck Strom Thurmond.
For sure.
There's also the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin, which we're not going to have a chance to talk about today, which Elon got fucked, and he lost a bunch of money, and that's funny. And he apparently was at least a 5-point drag on his candidate. That's great. The only thing I want to make about it, it seems like blanketing the airwaves with ads about puberty blockers and trans people in bathrooms did not have the intended effect in Wisconsin. So just want to flag that for everybody who's still holding on to that as the reason everything's falling apart.
Do you think this is going to lead to like an actual, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a course correction with Elon from the administration, like a bit of a smackdown for him as a result of this.
He appears to have been at least temporarily excommunicated, but I don't know if it's because of that or because of the tariff stuff we're going to talk about, because he is super not for tariffs.
Right. Yes, there's also that. That's why he's a big free market guy, which, makes sense.
Well,
considering he's
free market when it comes to selling, when it comes to government giving him money.
Well, he wants money from the government.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Right.
So, one little thing before we get to the show, and today we're going to be talking about the tariffs, which no one can figure out why we're doing them or what the point is. We'll talk about that. So in Idaho, there's an intra-Republican fight here between a lady who's a farmer and a guy named Ryan Spoon, who's a vice chair of the Republican Party in Ada County. The lady is State Representative Stephanie Mickelson. He called ICE on her, accusing her of hiring undocumented workers, which of course she fucking does. They all do.
She does. Yes.
Which is her point. She wrote an op-ed for a newspaper calling Spoon a carpetbagger from California who doesn't understand how farming works, which he is.
Right. Right. My question about that, so far with this limited information, I would say that she's, spitting, but like, is she herself? Is she like MAGA, or is she not? Like, where's she at on immigrants generally? You know what I mean?
They're all MAGA. She just wants her slaves.
I know. Well,
right?
that's what I'm getting at. I'm saying it's like, yeah, but in this limited context, it's like, yeah, you tell his ass, Stephanie. You're right about that. But then I assume it's because, like you said, she's fine with all the rest of them getting rounded up and shipped off, but not her farm hands or whatever.
This is one of those epochs on everyone's house thing, because like in a perfect world, I think those people should be like given documented status and be guaranteed solid wages. But also in the real world, they're willing to work not having legal status for a lesser wage. But fuck her for abusing them. But also we like the whole system runs on shit like this. I'm not sure what anybody's supposed to do about it. But like her basic point about him not understanding how things works is true. Like I try to understand how things work and wish they could be better. She likes the way they work currently, and he wants to make them worse. All right. So
yeah,
but like not understanding how it works. Let's point this out. So the Idaho Dairymen's Association, which also wants their slaves, estimates that around 90% of workers in the state's dairy industry are foreign-born. The CEO of the Idaho Dairymen's Association is named Rick Narrowbout, one of those Midwestern names, said if you remove the unauthorized portion of the agriculture workforce, at that point we don't have the ability to produce enough food to feed ourselves. I think he's just talking about Idaho.
Right. No, anytime this ever comes up, I bring this up, but it's because it's relevant. Years ago now, I don't even know. It had to be 10 plus years ago, when I still lived in Tennessee, Alabama as a state passed some really sweeping draconian anti-immigration measure to stick it to the Mexicans or whatever, and then they had like catastrophic losses in their every
Yeah.
agricultural sector that year. Like all their crops died and shit, and it put them in a real bad way because of course it did. And then they had to they had to go back on that eventually because it's just the reality of the situation. And they I get that. I know that they want to fear monger about immigrants and stuff, especially around election time or whatever. Of course, they're going to do that. But like getting into actually putting these policies in place and rounding these people up and shit, I thought that they were just being disingenuous and did all understand that it would be bad, that it would be disastrous, and that they would not do that. So they're just bullshitting the whole time. But if they go down that, they keep fucking around, they're going to find out. So. Which is sort of a theme lately.
We're trapped in this doom spiral the Republicans are, where like they gin up, they provide grist for the rubes, right?
Right.
The rubes get amped up and claim more power, so they need to okay, now we got to cater to the rubes more, and more rubes take over. And then, but they've gotten themselves in a situation where the people who believe all the lies control everything,
right.
And there's nothing the powers they can be to rein them in anymore, which is kind of what we're talking about today.
Exactly.
But like, just in this specific scenario, we're 10 weeks into Trump's presidency, and we've got the state party calling the Gestapo on each other already. So there we go. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. All right, producer Matt is with us doing his thing back there. This is Weekly Skews. Before we get into it, I've, of course, got a couple things to remind you of. First, if you want to see me do stand-up comedy live and in person, go to TreyCrowder.com. Check out my upcoming tour dates. Northwest Arkansas, just got back from there. The weather was horrific the entire time, as it was in much of the country, but the shows, as always, were great. So thanks to you guys who came out to that. I got Knoxville and Chattanooga coming up with Drew and Corey, my co-founders of the Skewniverse, this weekend. But those shows are sold out, so I hope you got your tickets already. Otherwise, you'll just have to catch me next time. And then we got Oregon. A lot of those shows are sold out too. You guys are hitting for me. Houston, Texas, Vegas, Tulsa, San Diego, and more in the near future. TreyCrowder.com. Also, there's a link on there to my new special, Trash Daddy, on YouTube, which is hitting for people. It's funny. It's a good time. If you haven't watched it, what are you waiting for? Go watch it, please. And lastly, if you enjoy this program and would like to show your support, you can do so by signing up on Patreon. weeklyskews.com/more, or just go to Patreon and search for my name and you'll find it that way too. $5 a month gets you access to 2 full-length bonus episodes where we just do, additional episodes of this show just the way it is. And sometimes we switch it up by taking your burning questions. We call those Skew and A's. Either way, it's just this show, but more of it. So get some more Skews in your life and support the show in the process. Signing up on Patreon. All right. That's for the show tonight. We've already told you. We've already revealed what we're going to be talking about. Again, the tariff tragedy going on worldwide and the reaction there too and the fallout thereof and everything surrounding it. But first, we got the Daily Dumbass. Matt, graphic, please. Tonight's DD, the founder of Barstool Sports, for not realizing he's going to need to burn that bar stool for heat this winter.
Trump has put his tariffs all over the place. It's a wacky formula, new tariffs. And everything's in the shitter because of it. I'm down $7 million.
Nice.
Okay. So
It's Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool Sports, as we mentioned. And I was saying when you sent whoever group chatted this video, like, it's like the first thing I've seen him bitching about lately where MAGA and Trump are concerned. He's been upset with them recently, which is funny to me, considering everything else about him.
He did want to go on to say he's still glad he didn't vote for Kamala Harris. But
Right.
I do want to point, that video was from Friday. Here's an important update from today, if you got this, Matt.
Ooh, I hadn't seen this. All right.
I went super viral when I said I lost $7 million. I'd kill to be back to losing $7 million.
So to give Portnoy credit, he's dubbed today Orange Monday, which to me is a pretty good bit.
Pretty good,
and
yep.
Except for the part where it's going to be really embarrassing to us when historians figure out why. It's like, oh, President was a guy who painted his face orange. Not all of it, just the parts you could see straight on in the mirror. And like,
Right.
why? I think he thinks it makes him look younger, even though everyone knows that he's 80. Oh, yeah. So, before we get into this, first of all, my condolences to anyone who's got to put off retirement because of this shit, or anyone who's good. Like, we don't know who's going to be unemployed yet. But like, the only reason I care about the stock market at all, as a person who doesn't have any investments,
Right.
No, I spent all my money, any extra money I had in my 20s and 30s having a good time, and all I got to say is, who's the ant, who's the grasshopper now, motherfucker?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, but it is. I know. I always think anytime this always comes up, I think of the line from that Alabama song. So somebody told us Wall Street fell, but we was so poor that we couldn't tell, or whatever. I've also never been tied to the stock market, but it is oftentimes, a harbinger of larger doom in the near future. So
yeah, if you've got a 401k, generally the market grows long term, and so it's smart to put your money in mutual funds, whatever. Yeah, but when it goes up a lot in the immediate term, it generally helps about 30 people in the world.
Right.
But when it collapses, it fucks everybody on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So that's the reason I care about it. And so when I talk about the economy, I'm not talking about markets. I'm talking about stuff like homelessness, foreclosures, and the suicide rate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with that context, I just want to point out before we get into the tariff stuff. Since everyone who really loves or hates Trump seems to think that Trump always has some super clever plan,
I
want
always
you
playing
to
8D chess all the time with everybody.
I want you to keep this story in mind during all of this. Trump's tariff origin story, and this is from a piece in 2019 called "Trump's Love for Tariffs Began in Japan's 80s Boom." Back in 1988, Trump was trying to buy a 58-key piano that was used in the movie Casablanca. But he lost the auction to a Japanese guy back when Japan was the big free trade boogeyman, right? Mm-hmm. And his takeaway from that was it was an affront to God for a Japanese guy to have more money to spend on a piano than him. And he's made it his life's mission to make sure other countries don't have money since 1988. That's the main thing going on here.
Sure. But when I know you're not, I know that we're both very aware it still doesn't make sense, but it's like that. It just also fucks us too. You know what I mean? Like, his rationale is like he's just trying to screw everybody else. I know it's all about trade deficits. That's one of those things that he's always been stuck on. Where it's like because he thinks he literally wrote that stupid ass book, The Art of the Deal. Like he thinks he's like he's the fucking the overlord of all the best business deals that have ever been made. He understands them better than anybody else, and he thinks that if you're getting screwed, if America's getting screwed over in a deal, it's got to be rectified. And he sees a trade deficit, which there could be a million different reasons for. He sees that as being screwed, right? So it's that's got to be fixed, and so. But that ain't how anything works in reality.
Right, yeah. We'll get to I got a big chunk prepared on the trade deficit stuff. We'll talk about it because it's really the trade deficit. He thinks it's bad because it has the word deficit in it.
Yeah, it sounds
but
bad.
It's not.
There's
a
minus sign involved.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you say it's gonna it's possible there's some people that could be better off with all this. It just with targeted tariffs, if we onshore some stuff, which I'm in favor of. But the point is not like this. This is the stupidest way to go about it. Right. And back last summer during the height of the campaign, you asked me are tariffs good?
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking about it's like asking is paint good? Mm-hmm. Paint is good for changing the color of a fence, but it's bad to drink. Right? So context matters here, and I have no idea where we're going to be at with this tomorrow. He might relent, delay some of the tariffs, or change his mind and undo it. It doesn't matter. The damage, America's no longer the center of global commerce, and it's just going to look way different over the long term. And there's nothing we can do to undo it because we've proven ourselves to be morons who elect a moron to run everything
twice. Right? Twice. Because it's the first time around, I feel like the whole world was like, "What the fuck is that about?" But then he didn't win re-election, and if we had not then elected him again, we might have been able to get away with it with all the power and wealth that we wield. But having elected him twice and just watching him as he burns everything to the ground, I mean, our reputation or our standing or whatever you want to call it on the global stage is definitely we've just handed it to China. I guess China's number one now, which is ironic considering how much shit they talk about China, and we've just given it to them on a platter. And
they're on a path to being it's like we've chosen the path now, right? Yeah. So it's not that they lapped us or whatever, but the idea that we're always going to have a stronger military in China, I think is a little bit of a fantasy right now because when they have we've defunded all our science and shit, and we don't believe in logistics. So there we go.
Speaking of China, they haven't banded together with South Korea and Japan in response to this. They have United Front, which is that's wild when you've got those countries working together, getting up with Japan to do stuff as one, then you've really fucked up. I've seen some people say, like half jokingly, that Trump, though it will ruin America, Trump could end up being a net good for the world if he continues to unite the rest of it against us. Like he's like the most unifying factor we've ever seen for the rest of the globe, just bringing everybody together in opposition to our stupid asses. So
I remember reading from a Chinese American who has a relative back in China who's a devout evangelical Christian who believed that Trump was anointed by God to be president of America, but to destroy America,
right?
To the benefit of Japan. So So like getting like you don't have to know a ton about like the history of Asia to be like China pushing China and South Korea and Japan into an alliance together is like it's like you managed to get NBA back together in like 1994.
Yeah.
So like this is just fascinating to me because like no one really has any sort of coherent ideology anymore because everybody's gonna buy into Trump's bullshit or oppose Trump's bullshit. But like I think I texted you guys the other day. Like I was walking my dog and I saw a black dude with dreadlocks get out of a jacked up Chevy pickup truck with a "Don't Tread on Me" sticker on the back and skateboard away. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the fuck is this dude about?
Right.
Our political parties are that now.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's like where like I was trying to think of where that guy could be going, probably like to like a Proud Boys offshoot called the Rude Boys meetup.
Sure.
So like here you're the vanguard of the conservative free trade party destroying global trade in the name of protectionism for unions, kind of, but he doesn't really believe in unions, so he wants low-paid factory jobs, which nobody wants.
Right. Well, in a way, it's kind of, I mean, again, I know that it isn't going to work, but I'm saying like the argument for it, I feel like it's probably something that probably hits for people in my hometown where, I've talked about it a million times. We had the factory that was the beating heart of our town's economy, left with NAFTA in the 90s and decimated everything. And it was a blue county and it's been a red county ever since and went hard for Trump and that whole narrative. The idea that like, oh, these are meant to bring the jobs back, the factory jobs back that like killed our town, that people might hear that and be like, well, hell yeah. But that's, it's just not how that's actually going to work, right? First of all, that would take a long time. Secondly, it's like everything about our economy has shifted. Third, it's like robots work in factories now. Like, it's just none of it's going to actually work. But
it's also based upon like people. People seem to believe the 1950s existed like the drawings they see in cigarette ads from magazines back then.
Yeah, Norman Rockwell paintings and shit.
Right. A guy shows up at home in a big car wearing a suit from work from his 9-to-5 job, where a pretty wife, they're always white, by the way, a pretty
always
wife
white.
meets him in a dress with
a casserole.
Yes. two boys and a girl, and they have a house with a yard.
Yeah, and she's got a whiskey in her hand, and her mouth is closed and stays that way. Yeah,
and cigarettes are healthy for your T-zone. Yeah. And so I just want to the fantasy there to where if our overlords are listening is not that people work in a factory. Right. It's that they could support, they could provide a middle class living for their home on one income.
Yes,
it's not working widgets. They're trying to do the widgets without the one income thing.
Without the other part, sweatshops, American sweatshops. Yeah. So that's a really good point. Yes.
But you have no one has any idea. So the Wall Street Journal had a front page this morning where Trump was looking gross and talking about how the tariffs are a catastrophe, yada yada yada, and people were like, "Oh, the supposed left-wing mainstream media is not doing this, but the Wall Street Journal is going hard after Trump. They're not being more left than Trump. They're being principled free market conservatives,
right?
And you guys can't even see it anymore because everyone's brains are so broken by the fucking internet. And so, but imagine telling a Vietnam vet who lost both his legs fucking trying to stop Vietnam from falling to the communists, being told that the communist general secretary of Vietnam is calling up the White House trying to persuade the American president to embrace free markets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And telling his dad, the World War II vet, that also his chief advisor is a Nazi who like Heils Hitler on stage in front of their rallies and shit.
And one of his other chief advisors inside the White House is a Nazi Jew.
Yeah.
So fucking make any of this shit make sense. So, but like the fucking Chinese embassy is posting videos with captions in Chinese of Ronald Reagan talking about how tariffs are bad.
Yeah.
So
Bizarro world, baby. Up is down, left is right, and dumb is
like
smart.
so
Welcome to the
Trump
future.
Trump's got the president of United Auto Workers, Sean Fain, talking about how great the tariffs are, which maybe they will be for his union. I'd have no idea, except that I would note that, like, as soon as the tariffs were announced, Stellantis laid off 900 auto workers. And then Fain's gave an interview today. He was like, well, nobody cares about the stock market because a ton of Americans don't own any stock, which is true, except the auto workers do through their pension funds.
Mm-hmm.
So what the fuck is anybody on about?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you said, I have stocks either, and I always felt the same way about it. But as you mentioned right before that, a lot of like just regular middle class, normal ass people have like 401ks or retirement accounts and stuff like that to their jobs and shit, which are affected by this stuff, you know. And again, more importantly, like we said, when it all goes to shit, other things follow. You can't just point and laugh at Wall Street when the bottom falls out.
You think the bosses are going to defer their bonuses, or are they going to lay people off? Right. So that's the problem, right? And like you brought up the NAFTA, the main business employer in my hometown, the town I went to high school in, was a furniture factory, and then after the mid '90s, it was now it's a Walmart. Okay, so you're absolutely right. I don't want to sound like I'm super free. I just will note that, like, if you look at the graph of like U.S. manufacturing jobs, NAFTA comes in the middle of the downslope, and you can't even observe a difference of it happening. That was happening anyway. I don't really know what Clinton's goals were, but if you told Bill Clinton that that the Republican president in 2025 will be talking like those NWO protesters in Seattle who had the giant puppets during NAFTA, the NAFTA negotiations, I'd be like, what the fuck? The world's utterly broke.
Yeah.
It just like. So, I do not want to fucking be put in the position of defending Bill Clinton. I will point out that America in general is a lot richer than it was in the 90s. The problem is no one's sharing the fucking money.
Yeah, right.
So like the problem, it's not, we do not want to necessarily want to put the factory back in Salina or Appomattox. We want to share the wealth so Appomattox and Salina can still have good schools and jobs programs, even if the factory isn't there.
Preach. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, really, like you said, the factory part wasn't the part. It's, hell, that would be utopic. If you didn't have to work at the factory anymore, but your life still hit. Like, right. That's what's up.
Nobody wants to people imagine all these MAGA influencers, by the way, make their living podcasting and selling supplements. Like, oh, this America's broken as men don't feel like they make anything anymore, so you go work at the factory. You're not woodworking at the fucking factory doing stuff that's fulfilling. You're putting a piece of metal in a thing and watching it get bent, then moving it, doing that repetitively all day. It's like, fuck. No one wants to work in the factory is what I'm saying. And like anybody trying to bait you into wanting that is fucking lying to you. And again, they make their living blogging, podcasting, lying. All right. So we say that as podcasting is the most dignified profession, of course.
Of course. Yes.
So like one of the reasons I want to say is like I'm not super pro free trade. I don't think it's great that a bunch of children and people, and also adults, work in sweatshop like conditions in Vietnam, making our sneakers and our clothes.
Right.
But I don't think the solution is like, well, instead we should put American kids in the sweatshops.
Yeah.
So like I don't think that is actually the solution anybody wants.
Which is probably why I'm sure you saw one of them. Was it Lutnick or one of them like literally said that, right? Did you see that clip? They didn't say sweatshops, but he said like, imagine a world where all those little hands are tightening screws on little iPhones, but that's happening in America or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's universally regarded as hellish conditions, I thought. But they want the children to go back to work anyway. They've been after that for a minute.
Their pitch is we need to orange shore the Foxconn factories with a suicide nest to keep them from dying when they jump off the building because they make them sleep at work. That's the sales pitch, and people are falling for it. So like for context here, like, again, I'm in favor of onshoring a lot of this stuff. We saw like what happens to supply chains during stuff like COVID. Okay, like it makes sense. And what Biden was doing was like it was kind of working. We're in the middle of kind of a manufacturing, like industrial boom right now that's being dismantled by these fucking tariffs. A lot of industrial investments collapsing because nobody knows they can import the stuff they're using to build the factories. let me give you an example of what I talk about by trying to onshore everything immediately at gunpoint, like at economic gunpoint, feels absolutely insane. Okay, and not just because you literally cannot farm palm oil in Connecticut, you can't
Right.
do it.
Yeah, I've seen people use the example of coffee because Americans love coffee, right? And the only place in America you can grow coffee is Hawaii, I think. And
I
they
think
have
so.
one coffee company there, Kona, which is like
Yeah,
0.1% of the coffee market. So, and
it's a high end expensive coffee too.
right, yeah,
It's like boutique. Like so, it's delicious by the way. One of the times I've had it, but like so like an example of like what onshoring looks like for some of this stuff. Okay, so like China manufactures a lot of our pharmaceuticals, right? So we onshore the pharmaceutical factories. But guess who makes the precursor chemicals that go into the drugs? China. Okay, so now we onshore the factories that make those precursor chemicals. Guess who makes the machines that make the ingredients? China. So
hmm
now we got to onshore the factories that make the machines that make the ingredients. Guess who makes the chips that go in the machines? So for this plan to work, we need a machine that builds itself, contrary to the laws of thermodynamics, and we need it tomorrow.
right, yes, yeah. You need for every step in the process we're not prepared for,
No.
and you can't coordinate it in a realistic way to make that feasible either, just because of just the way reality be. It's just not
Yeah.
something you can do.
It's also like there is such a thing as competitive advantage where they don't see which they literally want a conservative lawyer was trying to ask, well, how's competitive advantage like affect like free overseas markets? It's like you mean like because America can't grow bananas, so we trade stuff to South America for bananas, and what we have to trade is money, and that's what happens. But like so
Right.
some
Yeah.
countries do things other than other countries.
Right. Yes. We have uh yeah, I know that like we were saying earlier with the trade deficits and whatnot, like we get like gems, diamonds and emeralds and shit like that from like poor African countries, right? Because we live in a prosperous country where we can waste money on pretty rocks or whatever that they cut kids' hands off to incentivize them to mine over there. And I don't think you can just put a diamond mine and fucking mine in Arkansas or whatever.
No.
But also those people, they don't make money doing that. They just do it so they don't get their fucking hand chopped off. So they're not then ordering like planes or whatever that we make here. So, we're just sending them money and fucking and they're not.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's just the way it all works,
One of
it
the
doesn't.
Yeah, one of the countries we tariffed was a tiny African country by the name of Lesotho. We hit them. I think they get the highest tariff we could hit them with out of anybody. All right, and because when they plugged in the super math formula we'll get to, is like they sell us $100 million worth of diamonds a year for money, and they have an average daily income of like I think $5 a day. Okay,
Right.
so we have a huge trade deficit to them because they don't buy anything from us because they have $5 and we get $100 million worth of diamonds. So our solution is we need the people of Lesotho in order to get this tariff wiped out. They need to buy more Microsoft software.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's nonsensical. It's also
Right.
again even with the current relationship as you outlined it, like we being America are the country in the better position of the two, like very obviously.
But we're getting ripped off
it's
by
not
Lesotho.
bad. I know that's
Right.
what I'm saying. It's like it isn't even we're not in a bad position right there. We're in the superior position in the dynamic you just outlined, but because it amounts to a trade deficit, Trump is like, well, this will not stand or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know. It's insane.
And by the way, there are many historical examples of tariffs mixed with government planning and industrial policy producing prosperity for the nation that implements them. But what happens when 40 years of government is bad propaganda leads you to doing one without the second step?
Right.
We're about to fucking find out, I think. So this is the most there is no plan I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. Like, just an example, you talked about the 8D chess thing. Like, we've lost $10 trillion in market capitalization to fix a $1 trillion trade deficit. This is not 8D chess. This is an orangutan sticking a bishop up his asshole and smelling it. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So let me ask you, I've seen people say, and I'm sure this is part of this thing, you're trying to make sense of it, that it's like, it's just it's like a wealth redistribution. It's a regressive tax on. It's just a sales tax effectively. So it's reorienting like tax policy towards working and middle class people and fucking them over at the expense of the rich people. Which I mean I know that it is, but also the rich people are the ones that have all this shit in the stock market, which just plummeted, right? Like Dave Portnoy's rich. He's crying on fucking stream every day about the millions of dollars he's losing. So it's like, it just seems like it's bad for both of them, at least at this stage. So I don't understand, any of it. I don't understand any of it.
So nobody has any ideology more like, so as CNBC anchor, the business and markets are great sort of channel, a guy was really angry saying this is a tax cut for the wealthy at the expense of the poor, which it would be if goods got in for them to be bought. Mm-hmm. I don't think goods are going to get in to be bought. So it's really going to be nothing about nothing. It's just there's not going to be any stuff to get. There's not going to be any stuff to get.
Yeah.
Stuff to sell. So anyway.
They just set however many billions or trillions or whatever of dollars just on fire, like a la the Joker in the Dark Knight movie.
And this is just purely Mad King shit. It's Emperor has no clothes times a million. Except when the Emperor didn't have any clothes, all you got to do is look at a guy's gross old dick. Mm-hmm. Right? This is just, we got to look at a guy's gross old dick and also not have food to eat.
Yeah. Right.
Did we get out farcical with this? At the Rose Garden ceremony where they announced all this dumb shit, Trump brought up how his trade policies are working because we got the price of eggs down. He got the price of eggs down by speed running in the importation of a bunch of eggs and liquid eggs from Turkey because they weren't tariffed. That's why the prices came down.
Right. Yeah. And I'm assuming we've since tariffed Turkey. If he did that today, it would have the opposite effect, right? It would he was only able to do that because he hadn't levied his own tariffs yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So price the Marlo from the Wire Crew, price the egg going up, baby. Mm-hmm. So I can't really find a winner in all this. Usually you think, okay, here's the conspiracy. And yes, I understand that if you're in huge market collapses, people like Warren Buffett will scoop in and buy the dips and wait the long game for them to go back up. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, sure. Somebody profits in a market collapse always, but it's very hard to plan to make that happen. Mm-hmm. It's a bad plan. In general, Warren Buffett would like it just to always go up. But so the only way to make sure money off this is to if someone knew this tariff announcement was coming and it was going to be this bad, and they front ran the market with short bets, which a couple people can do that. Yes, like the same. If you've seen Casino Royale, it's what the chief did by trying to blow up the plane. And a guy sort of
but even that is not that isn't fair, right? I mean, isn't that like a version of insider trade? That's something they shouldn't be allowed to do anyway.
No, but but the SEC doesn't exist anymore.
Exist. Yeah, I know. Who's going to stop them, right?
Like this morning, a guy got paid $8 for a blue check mark on Twitter, changed his handle to Bloomberg, and announced that Trump was going to do a 90-day reprieve on the tariffs.
That's where that came from? Because I was watching, I turned on CNBC just because I knew I was probably going to be talking about this, and they're the business people, and I'm market dumb or whatever, and also just see what was even going on. I literally just woken up, and they were talking about this rumor that got out there. There was going to be a 90-day reprieve, and I guess the markets temporarily bounced back when that came out, but then they just got an official statement from the White House saying that was fake news, and they were definitely not. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So that literally was from just some random Twitter dipshit who just changed his name to Bloomberg and said it was going to happen. That is so perfectly this era of America.
And he caused $4 trillion of movements in the market. It went up, it shut up and shot back down. They realized it was bullshit. But if he was able to get and make some bets in there, he made a ton of money. So good. Again, no SEC. There's no laws here. Good luck. Congratulations to that guy. Wall Street lost so much money in this. I was thinking about the guys in that Financial Times article we quoted before where they said they were so happy because that Trump won because that means they can say the R word and call each other pussies at work again.
Right.
And I was just, when this happened, this market started collapsing, I was picturing them jumping out of a window like the guys, the stock traders did in 1929 by getting out one last R word on the way down. Just for the love of the game.
Or telling the other guys you won't do it, pussy, about killing himself by jumping out of the window.
Oh, God. So I heard clips of at least 2 or 3 different earnings because it's the end of the quarter when all this stuff was announced, right? So they're doing earnings calls. In the middle of their earnings call, saw their stock price and said, "Oh shit."
I bet.
By the way, I will take back when I said there were no winners in this. I do want to note that Philip Morris stock went up the day the tariffs were announced. I don't really know why. I can guess why. I'm willing to guess that cars running in garages stock was also up.
Right. Well, that's it. That is actually a thing, isn't it? Like sin stocks or whatever. I think they do well in times of, turmoil like this. I think it's like an actual trend, which I mean
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's like how binge drinking surged during COVID, so liquor stocks went up.
Right.
All these people are cross purposes and can't even get their story straight or what they believe anymore. Play this clip, Matt, if you got it.
Everyone is taking a hit, including billionaires. Elon Musk lost just over $30 billion just on Thursday and Friday, and he's down again today. And by the way, he's in a fight with the point man on tariffs, Peter Navarro.
Right. So yeah, Elon made a video this week saying that tariffs are stupid and we need a joint free market with Europe. So basically, we should take the UK spot after Brexit, and everybody from the White House told him to fuck off. So that if you're wondering why he's on the Aussies, it's not necessarily because of Wisconsin. So talking about all these people can't get their story straight or at cross purposes, like some Trump people are saying the tariffs are a negotiating tactic, a starting point for free trade deals with other companies. While others are saying they're permanent. And I can't tell who's wishing and who's shitting in their hand. There's also some Trump people saying it's so that we can work in the factories, while others are saying that the factories will be automated so the products will be affordable, because if Americans work there, they won't be. Like an iPhone will cost like $30,000 or some shit.
Right.
But no one's answered the question, as always, just like with AI stuff, if no one works, who's buying the fucking products with what money?
It's the part that never really makes sense to me when it comes to their general philosophy. They seem to just, I don't know, be ignorant to it or not care. I guess they're just like, we'll just either enslave or kill them all. It'll be fine. But then it's like you said, but there's
You still got to,
you still got to sell the thing that you're making, right? It's like people, even just the whole idea, even like trickle down, is like just such transparently bullshit as an idea, because it's been pointed out a million times. You give those people more money and they just put it in some fucking hedge fund or whatever. But if you give money to regular people, they go buy the fucking things that these rich people's companies sell, and like, you need those people. It's like I used to always, when I was a server, the church crowd on Sunday would come in and be shitty and judgmental and say we should be in church instead and not working there. And I was always like, internally, of course, I didn't say anything. I was always like, somebody's got to bring you your fucking chicken tenders, you asshole. Like, you want this, someone has to do it for you. Like, but anyway, people are just dicks.
Yeah. Henry Ford was literally a Nazi and paid his black employees a fair wage, because he said, well, who's supposed to buy a Ford if my employees can't afford a Ford?
Mm-hmm.
So if the fucking guy who made us all learn square dancing in high school to get rid of jazz music understood this, why don't our modern oligarchs? I don't fucking know.
Right.
They're just going to have sex robots and hang out with each other, I guess. So Scott Bissett went on TV and said that his idea is like, oh, well, we need to have the factories because of all the federal workers we fired can go work at the factories. So we've got all the PhDs you laid off who were doing like research into like renal failure can go work at factories making phone cases, which is like, that's literally Maoism. That's the Cultural Revolution. We're doing the Cultural Revolution in America now. We're getting rid of the academics and making them do labor.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad they're not Khmer Rouge-ing us yet, if I'm saying that right. Where they killed people with glasses.
Yeah. That's easy enough to disguise myself, though. I just want to see.
Sure. Yeah, I sound very dumb, so maybe that'll assist me when that day comes. All right.
So they're also saying the tariffs are meant to replace the income tax, but if you're using them to onshore the manufacturing process, there's no tariffs being paid.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So which is it? It's like, yeah, it's supposed to replace the income tax, but I thought ostensibly the whole idea is that they're like a deterrent to like initialize this other thing that you want to happen. So people shouldn't even be paying tariffs in a perfect world. So how are they a source of revenue? And if they are a source of revenue and you are counting on that money, then you don't want them to do the other thing, which you use to justify their existence. So, it's just all one feedback loop of nonsensical horse shit, it seems like.
Yeah. As Trey sort of explained earlier, like a trade deficit is just basically if you buy more stuff from another country than they buy from you. Right? Mm-hmm. Pretty straightforward.
Which, again, there's a million reasons why that might be the case in any given relationship. We already outlined one with the African country we were talking about earlier. Like, it doesn't make it bad, like, at all for either side. It's just the reality. You're never going to have... I feel like you would have to have trade... There's always going to be countries where you would... It can't work the other way. Like, there can't be just 100% surpluses with everywhere. on
Yeah.
account of how math and numbers and shit work. I think so.
Or just preferences. What if I don't fucking want to
Preferences.
eat Canadian bacon?
Right. Or just the reality of where things come from, like with the coffee or whatever. You can't just make things be from somewhere they're not from or whatever. So you get that from a place where it's from, and we send them something that they ain't got. And it's just how it's, I don't know. It's all very elementary, you'd think. I don't know what the problem is.
The only way to make it 1-to-1 is to go back to a pure bartering system.
Right.
Because the other way, like the way buying stuff works with money is you get the thing and the seller gets money. That's not a fucking scam.
Right.
Like by the same logic, this trade deficit bullshit. I have a trade deficit with the grocery store because I buy stuff from them. They don't buy jack shit from me.
Right.
So, and to state the obvious here about how like they think we're getting fucked, but the reason rich countries have trade deficits is because they have more money to buy stuff.
That's what I was saying earlier about the whole Lesotho thing or whatever. It's like, again, we're in the superior position that we're the rich country with people in it that have disposable income to spend on fucking shiny rocks, right? That you put, because we're in a spoiled, privileged, prosperous position, right? So that we're not getting fucked over by the country where the rocks are in the ground. Like, it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the biggest hittingest countries, I assume, all have many, many trade deficits because, like I said, they got more money to spend on shit that they don't even need but want. So why do you want to fuck with that?
I will even note that his trade deficits are exaggerated because he doesn't include services in there. And in the United States exports a lot of services.
Right.
So like the even then, like, it's not the trade deficits aren't even as imbalanced as pretending they are. Okay. But the only way to rectify this trade deficit problem is to try to force Cambodia to buy more Ford Raptors or something. I don't really understand what the fucking plan. So also, like, besides the fact that it's a stupid idea based on bullshit, excludes services. He described the tariffs as reciprocal and just pretended that other countries have a very high tariffs on American exports, which they do not. They just don't. So he's just fucking lying to justify a stupid idea. So how does this math even math? And this is where it gets even dumber, okay?
Oh, good.
When he announced the tariff rates, analysts, let me quote here from the story from Wired. When Trump announced the tariff rates, analysts were pretty stunned by the fact that the figures didn't seem to make much sense. Until a financial journalist figured out that the Trump administration hadn't calculated tariff rates at all, as they said they had, and instead just taken the U.S. trade deficit with a given country and divided it by that country's exports to the United States. As the financial journalist put it, it's extraordinary nonsense. And the day they announced this, at 11 a.m., they had a meeting to discuss how they were going to do it. And it feels like they hadn't done any homework before that point. Because then apparently what happened was someone went off and asked ChatGPT, how do you do tariffs on a country? And it spit out this fucking formula. So people figured this out because what they did was they were like, let me confirm my suspicions. And a bunch of people went to ChatGPT and asked it, quote, how to impose tariffs easily. And they gave you the exact same formula the White House is using.
That's a bad look.
So they had a Doge intern go to ChatGPT.
That's what I was about to say. I'm sure it's some big balls-esque 19-year-old who was tasked with doing that. Where else is it going to go other than ChatGPT?
Here's what it looks like when you ask ChatGPT the question. You go, what would be an easy way to calculate the tariffs? What would be an easy way to calculate the tariffs that should be imposed on other countries so the U.S. is on even playing fields when it comes to trade deficit? Set the minimum at 10%. And it gives you the exact same formula that the Trump administration is using. We have our first AI global disaster is what's happening. And all the different AIs, for whatever reason, have the same stupid idea. If you ask all the different publicly accessible ones, including Grok, the caveat, if you ask DeepSeek, the China one that is kicking everyone's ass, China, it did give you the same formula that the Trump administration is using, but it added a caveat saying this is a stupid idea, don't do it. So China stays winning. So another way ChatGPT did it is because they sanctioned a bunch of different fucking random islands and rocks that are territories of like legitimate countries.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd get into this part and make sense of it for me as you did, because yes, I kept hearing that. It's like we tariffed almost everybody, including uninhabited islands filled with nothing but penguins. So we put levied tariffs on penguins and stuff, which is of course
we're gonna talk about the penguins. Yeah,
but not Russia, Belarus, Cuba, North Korea, right? We're like some of the only ones left off the list, and we say it's because there's sanctions on them already. Anyway, Who is and is not on the list? I was hoping that you specifically would
I
get
saw
into
the same
that,
list
Mark.
you did: Russia, North Korea, Cuba. I like, which is like everyone's like, oh, he's in Russia's pocket, sure, but why? Like Cuba, I don't know. Like it's just like it's we don't import shit from Cuba really anyway. So what's the fucking point?
Well, that's what they said, but then that makes it look weird at a place where we ain't important shit from the Penguins either. Do you know what I'm saying? So like,
Right. But that's more evidence that it's ChatGPT. Okay, so like
okay,
how computer sees the world, right?
okay,
A computer sees countries as eminent domains, internet domains. The reason the Trump tariff schedule included a quote nation that consists of uninhabited islands is the organization that handles protocols for handing out internet addresses based on the national origin of the web address is very liberal about handing them out to avoid conflicts about who exactly counts as a country and who controls what territory, right? So like a lot of these uninhabited islands are kind of disputed territories. Like for example, like the Falklands in the 80s.
right,
Okay?
yeah,
So like, but they even fucked up because they wanted to tariff Taiwan. So they went in manually and ignored the fact that again, the country that hands out internet domains does it to like try to not take sides in who belongs to what. The Trump administration is the first American administration in forever to recognize Taiwan as a country.
mm-hmm.
And they did it by accident because AI told them
to fuck them over with tariffs. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And under like on this list, like the list of tariffed countries, you'll find British Indian Ocean territory, which is also known as the Chagos Islands. Nearly all the humans currently on these islands are U.S. military personnel at Diego Garcia military base. Diego Garcia base. So Trump just imposed tariffs on our own military base on territory we lease where the only residents are U.S. military because the computer told him to.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt they export anything to us, and they probably get their imports directly from U.S. cargo flights. But like, so nothing's going to happen. But this should be fucking embarrassing and stupid. But nobody feels stupid anymore because whatever. So yeah, so Jack Tapper asked Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, about the penguins yesterday. Let's listen to him talk about it.
Why are you putting import tariffs on islands that are entirely populated by penguins?
Well, I mean, come on, Jake. Obviously, here's the bottom line.
She pivots to going back to some other answer because this is so stupid she can't fucking defend it. Okay.
Yeah, of course. There literally is no possible defense for it. I mean, other than acknowledging, well, we kind of automated that whole deal. And so,
right.
There were a few hiccups and we'll get those cleaned up and it'll work like a charm, but they can't tell everybody that they automated it, I guess, because, it's got to be some grand master plan that they cooked up or whatever. So,
right. And she went on to say the people leading this are serious, intentional, patriotic, the smartest people I've ever worked with, which might be true because she was the policy director for then Texas Governor Rick Perry, most commonly known for Dancing with the Stars. So she might actually be telling the truth there. Howard Lutnick, who you mentioned earlier, he said that they had to tariff the Penguin Island because it was to close a loophole because other countries would just run their commerce through the Penguin Island at the tip of the coast of Antarctica.
Yeah, that'd be simple enough, right?
Just Jeff Bezos standing up at an Amazon delivery center in the Arctic manned by elephant seals. This is, oh God. So a few more comical examples here. The tiny island of Saint Pierre El Miquelon, which is off the coast of Canada, but is part of France, got hit with a 99% tariff because somebody bought $3.4 million worth of goods in July of 2024, which is probably crab, lobsters, and cod. And the 6,000 people that live there only bought $100,000 worth of U.S. products. So the trade deficit looks fucking severe. But so like the solution to this problem is we don't get to eat cod. One of the highest, we already talked about Lesotho, which was hit with 50% fucking tariff rate because we buy diamonds from them and they don't buy Buffalo Bills jerseys from us or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I want to quote here from Derek Thompson, The Atlantic. He said, quote, "The notion that taxing Lesotho gemstones is necessary for the U.S. to add steel jobs in Ohio is so absurd that I briefly lost consciousness in the middle of writing this sentence."
Right. Well, that is another thing, sort of, right? It's like there was talk about tariffs for a long time, and it was focused on like Canada and Mexico and stuff. And it's like, these are our allies. What this makes no sense. What the fuck are you doing? But it being on almost literally everyone, like it did kind of come sort of out of nowhere, right? Like it was, Like Liberation Day, like people did not know it was gonna be like this, right? Because
No,
it's like so
the market-
insane and nonsensical that you would ever do it in the first place.
Dude, the reason the market didn't collapse when he announced there was going to be Liberation Day is they assumed it would be like somewhere around 10%, and it'd be like there'd be a bunch of caveats and carve outs. And then when he announced how bad the tariffs were, they still didn't drop enough as they would if they thought he was being totally serious, because they still don't fucking believe him.
Right.
So the real drop has not happened yet. The tariffs have not kicked in, and the markets have not priced in the tariffs being at this level. So, yeah, I mean, it's real, getting real fucking stupid out here. I'm not sure when Wall Street will believe him. Probably when they're all dead. So I want to play this fucking clip of Howard Lutnick here talking about beef.
I mean, the European Union won't take chicken from America. They won't take lobsters from America. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak. I mean, the European
Right.
Union.
So the reason Europe doesn't take our beef is because they don't like how much hormones and antibiotics we inject into it. Okay?
Sure.
Which, fair.
Mhm.
But I don't really know the science behind it. I think it's probably fine to have some of the antibiotics and some of the hormones, if it's cruel to the cattle. Maybe that's the reason why. But either way,
Yeah.
they're making noise about how like Australia doesn't import our beef. American beef producers do not want to export to Canada because they make more money selling it here. They're trying to force our farmers to sell beef overseas. They don't want to.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sorry, you said their beef is weak, but it's like, I mean, considering how marbling works and how fat hits and stuff, I feel like you might want a weaker beef, actually. That's also kind of the science, the idea behind the horrific pursuit. That's not the right word. Veal, how we make veal, you know? Like you want them to be soft and fat and weak, so you just shove them in a cage and fill them with grain until they almost explode, and then they get real juicy. So anyway,
I think our
digress.
cattle are weak and theirs. Our cattle are strong and theirs are weak. I think he's like talking about the steroids.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we pumped full of hormone. We got big old jacked bulls with big dicks. Big old American bull dicks, Mark. And they got little pansy-ass French bulls fucking traipsing around the countryside over there. And I'm saying, even if that's true, I bet those, you know, little wispy French bulls might arguably taste better, is all I'm saying. Just so everybody knows.
But they're not as profitable because they're smaller. That's
There's less of them. Yes, right. Of course. I'm glad we figured all that out.
I'm trying to figure out, I thought the whole point of that MAHA, the Make America Healthy movement again, it was like people don't want the hormones in the beef. Was there's an idea here we import the weak and gay European cattle without the steroids, and we make the Europeans eat the steroid cattle? I don't know, but like Brooke Rollins in that same Jake Tapper interview went on to say, complain about the European Union doesn't take our pork. And Tapper brought up the hormones used in pork thing, and she said, Brooke Rollins said they're using fake science and unsubstantiated claims to not take our products. Which, yes, but who else is using fake science to say, like, anyway, fuck, you guys made RFK Jr. the goddamn Health and Human Services Secretary. Mm-hmm. What are we doing? Like the whole thing about, like people were thinking you're not going to be able to get vanilla in the United States anymore. Like, oh, well, a bunch of MAGA people on the internet were like, well, what is vanilla in besides ice cream?
Bullshit.
Every fucking thing.
I'll fucking put my foot down on that. As somebody who took up baking during COVID and now is a big devotee of it, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Vanilla is the sweet version of garlic, where it's like, I don't care what the recipe says, you just put it in there till it hits. But it's in almost everything that hit. Yeah, right. No, vanilla's like perhaps the most crucial ingredient in baking outside of, like, obviously flour and sugar or whatever. But yeah, no. Anybody ain't putting respect on Vanilla's name, they can take it up with me, because they're fucking idiots.
Right. So
we need vanilla. We need vanilla.
We got an administration where RFK Jr. is going to be trying to ban like red dye number 7 or whatever. At the same time, they're going to make him go out and argue that imitation vanilla, which is made from petrochemicals and wood pulp, is better for you than real vanilla. Right? Mm-hmm. That's where we're fucking headed. And we are so goddamn stupid as a people, man. I mean, CNN did this focus group of people. In their own words, CNN's audience shares their thoughts on Trump's tariff. This is a woman from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I am planning on growing all our produce this year. Harrisburg is a suburb in central Pennsylvania, so she's saying she's going to grow bananas in her suburban yard in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Look, I don't know, like somebody grew up on a farm here. Farming's fucking hard.
Yeah.
You need a lot of land to do it.
Bro, not even just far. Even if you're just talking about for your, my mama used to always keep a garden and shit that we ate plenty of stuff out of every year. And it hit real hard for me, by the way. But just gardening, that shit's harder than people think it is. I know it's like that whole like green thumb thing is a real thing. We've tried various things growing them out here and we can't, you can't just throw seeds in the ground and hope for the fucking best. You got to know what you're doing a little bit.
Also, if you go a few months without rain, you starve to death, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason. There's a reason people stop living that way. So yeah. So we had like a garden at our house. It was like 4 or 5 acres. So calling it a garden's a bit fucking small, but we call it a garden. And we had another acre of corn that we try to sell at a roadside stand or whatever. But like my dad was able to do this because he worked in the garden all weekend, every weekend, and had 3 children to do free labor. And we still had to buy vegetables because it wasn't enough. This reminds me of the whole trad wife influencer thing with all these women on Instagram.
Homesteading.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at like people are like as aspirational. Like it does look like a decent life to be like, I'm a stay-at-home mom who takes care of this hobby farm, and I have 6 beautiful blonde-haired white children. Okay. But I'm looking at that. I'm like, that's a millionaire.
Oh yeah.
That's a fucking millionaire. That's not a sustainable way for everyone to live. So
No.
like I don't understand why people think that's possible. But so the scenario we're in is basically back in the 70s. U.S. business oligarchs fucking funded a counterattack against the New Deal. They deliberately dumbed everybody down in the entire population, made college unaffordable, and they wiped out the good jobs you could do without a college degree. And now our country is pissed off fucking morons who think they can farm in their backyard in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, enough food to live on for the year.
Yeah.
Ah, fuck.
Now,
So-
we mean and dumb. That's the order of the day for sure. And it seems to only, and they're pushing even further. They're trying to basically just get rid of what schools we do have, and they're always, talking shit about it. Like playing to people's meanest instincts as well. So mean and dumb is what they want, I guess. I don't know why you need the mean part. I guess so you got a bad guy to to get people rallied against. If they weren't mean, they wouldn't hate Mexicans and Muslims and other immigrants and stuff. So I guess that's why you need it. But it's a shame.
As far as China's part in this, and China's not going to lay down on this trade deal. They don't have to. We import way more stuff from them than they do from us, and they have plenty of other markets they can sell to.
Of course, yeah.
And they're worth paying the price of this trade war to fucking watch us eat shit, which is why they haven't raised a single peep about us accidentally recognizing Taiwan as an independent country. China rolled out flying cars the other day, by the way. We have measles.
Yep.
I'm not trying to do like pro-Chinese propaganda.
Such a good way to frame that.
Yeah. Not everybody in China, like a lot of poor people and oppressed people in China who don't have access to the flying cars. I'm not doing pro-Chinese. I'm still on the net for the moment. I'd still rather live here. Okay. But I want to quote here from The Economist. China enters the new age of MAGA stronger than in Mr. Trump's first term. President Xi Jinping has long argued that America is too polarized and overstretched to sustain its global goal. His paranoid nationalism used to seem like dystopian hyperbole. Now that Mr. Trump is committing such wanton self-harm and general destruction, it looks ahead of its time. So if you follow Chinese policy announcements closely, their Chinese century inflection point was supposed to be 2050. Okay. The 25-year difference between 2050 and now is the gap between their belief in American competence and America's actual competence.
Right. Yeah, they overestimated us. Didn't realize how dumb we could be, dumb and incompetent. To be fair, I didn't either.
Do we have a couple more minutes? I mean, I've lost track.
Yeah, we got not really. We got like a minute left. So, do you want to just close it up, or do you want to mention something?
I want to mention one last thing here in case you think any of these people are smart or know what they're doing. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, we talked about a few times today. He came up at Cantor Fitzgerald, started there in 1983, worked his way up to CEO. She's like, oh, he knows what he's doing. When he left Cantor to become Trump's Commerce Secretary, the people he put in charge of the company were his 2 sons. One of them, Kyle, in his 20s, used to SoundCloud rap under the name KXTZ.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have money at Cantor, it's run by a guy who thought it was a wise time investment to rap at Stanford. And his dad, the guy in charge of the U.S. Department of Commerce, thought that was a smart hire. And I want everyone to disabuse themselves of the notion that any of these people have any fucking idea what they're doing.
Nope. It's fail sons all the way down, baby.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hang in there. All right. We'll see. I will document how it goes as we head further down into the the depths of this hellscape. But we appreciate you watching. Like I said, go to TreyCrowder.com and check out my upcoming tour dates and my new special, Trash Daddy. Come and see me on the road and watch that there on YouTube. Support the show by getting more of it when you sign up on Patreon, weeklyskews.com/more, or search for me on Patreon. $5 a month, 2 full-length bonus episodes. But either way, if you keep watching on Skews, then we'll keep showing up. We'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.